Yes, you read the title correctly. No, it is not clickbait. In fact, the guy that we're going to be talking about today is, in fact, that unhinged. So before we dive into this rabbit hole, I need to explain a few things real quick first. A few prefaces, so to speak. Number one, I'm not responding to the entirety of his fucking video. It is 47 minutes of word salads and redundancy. It goes on and on and on and on and on. If you want to watch that in its entirety, if you're a masochist, I guess, the link, of course, will be in the description below. If you do not already know who Bryan Mullins the Fox is, however, I did an entire video on that guy actually not that long ago. The link, of course, will also be in the description below and up here somewhere. Needless to say, if you had a box of crayons, Bryan Mullins would be the dimmest one that breaks first. And all that shit aside, the following will be my response to the most coherent clips I could harvest from his 47-minute anime villain monologue.
I'm anti-pedo, and I am disappointed in the generic-ass response to how they see pedos and predators. They would rather idolize a murderer than ever for the life of themselves let a pedophile/predator jerk it to less harmful CP, get desensitized to it themselves, to where even they don't hurt children or even want to come near children, and find themselves more comfortable with getting help, therapy, and a great assurance that they will never need to do any of that either ever again or never once in the first place.
What he's referring to here when he says they is basically society at large. And what he's complaining about is a very common rhetoric that killing all pedophiles is the cure for pedophilia. Now, although I do personally empathize with the rhetoric that killing all pedophiles would cure pedophilia, I do agree that the pedo pills, bullets, is a very cringe virtue signal because nobody's actually doing it. Nobody's going out and actually killing pedophiles. If they did, it would be less annoying, but since nobody's fucking doing that, it's just virtue signaling. And thus, we have now heard the only part where I will even be mildly agreeable with Bryan Mullins the Fox, as right after that he contradicts it with therapy. And the problem with that, of course, is the fact that most pedophiles and child predators don't actually see what they have as a problem. If they did, we would see them volunteering to go get help, and they don't. And this, of course, should be really obvious to basically anybody that has ever looked into really anything, right? I mean, serial killers don't think they're doing anything wrong. Serial rapists don't think they're bad people. Fucking people that are heavily mentally ill don't think they have any mental illnesses or don't think they should actually go to therapy because they think they can deal with it themselves. This is something we see every single day. This is a problem that has always existed since the dawning of time. And the other problem here, of course, is you can't force therapy. Forced therapy just doesn't work. And the people that go to therapy are people that acknowledge that they have problems at all in the first place. And so if pedophiles and all the other things I listed don't think that they have any problems, they are, of course, not going to go seek therapy because they don't think their problem is a problem. And thus making everything Bryan Mullins just said in of itself a problem. A problem that Bryan Mullins will, of course, not see because he doesn't think anything that he says is a problem, which is ultimately the problem.
Desensitization is the cure because not all sexual predators are child predators, but those that are don't need to be exploited by the government, law enforcement, or even predator hunters in general by giving them what they want, by baiting them to pretend that they can come near children, or minors, or young adults pretending to be minors or children, only for them to know that the more porn they watch, the more desensitized they are, and the more desensitized they are, it's dramatically less and less likely that they need to even exploit or her actual children/minors to get the same satisfaction that's disgusting and depraved that jacking up to CP gave them, or would give to anybody in the first place.
Bryan, I don't think you understand what desensitizing means, or what you just said would actually do. If you desensitized all pedophiles to the act of pedophilia by allowing them to watch CP, you're not actually doing anything other than normalizing the very behavior that we're trying to condemn through law. And by we, I mean, society at large. If anything, what you would actually be doing is increasing the odds of them wanting to rape children, not the opposite. Desensitizing doesn't mean numb. It doesn't mean that I'm bored of it and need to go seek help. That's not how that works. That doesn't make any sense. And that doesn't ring true for literally anything else. If I desensitize a soldier to killing, That's not going to make him less likely to kill someone when deployed overseas. That doesn't make any sense.
What if I told you that the government sexually exploits far more children than a child predator ever could? We rely on the government to do the rest of our job for them when it comes to protecting our children from these very predators. How come it's only a bad thing that predators exploit children, but not bad when the government or law enforcement, the ones we trust to protect and serve, exploit children themselves? How come it's only a bad thing when predators do it, but also not when parents do it? How come we only care to weaponize stigmatization and child porn being illegal against those who consume it, pedophiles and predators, but no one the fuck else, even children/minors themselves, even if it means the fake-ass porn not even hurting them? Because if and when we humanize pedophiles/predators, we understand what their problem is in a more humane way.
So 2 things to mention about that clip real quick before I respond to it in its entirety is that whenever he's talking about fake porn, that'll come up a little bit later as to what he means by that, and it's not what you think. Number 2, I find it really weird you're empathizing with pedophiles and child predators this hard. It's a little fucking weird. I don't know why you're doing it. However, I really need proof that the government is exploiting more children than child predators, but more than that, because by the way, spoiler, he doesn't show any proof of that, he just throws that out there. I'm a bit weirded out that you actually think that people are not bothered by parents sexually abusing their kids. Like, what? In fact, do you know what we call parents and members of law enforcement or, I don't know, preachers that molest and or otherwise sexually abuse children? Do you know what we call those, Bryan? We call them child predators, Bryan. This is what happens whenever you're so against predator hunting that you move towards the opposite direction. Don't get me wrong, I think predator hunting is cringe. I mean, every predator hunter I've ever seen online turned out to be a massive fucking degenerate in their own right. But I'm not gonna go so against them that I start empathizing with predators and fucking pedophiles. That doesn't make any sense, Bryan. You have lost the plot.
These monsters are no less human than you and me. They're not even any less human than we are as a society.
Just because they may be physiologically human doesn't mean that there's any merit in calling them human. And this weird ideology that's saying we're human or we're all human or I am human as if that's supposed to mean fucking anything at all is a problem. That viewpoint can be used to justify literally anything and often is, and especially in this case, being used to justify not harshly punishing people that attack the most vulnerable among us, children.
If we would decriminalize all porn, including CP, and not the dangerous type of it, the predators and pedophiles wouldn't feel like they're taking a risk or making a business out of it, illegally, and hence they would be less likely to want to come near your children in general.
So what's really funny about what he's saying here is that it's very akin to an argument that I've made in the past, that we should legalize all drugs because at the end of the day, it's better to have a legal market than a black market. And besides, who the fuck wants to support people like the cartel? I mean, they use the purchasing of drugs to fund other things that are far worse than the purchasing and selling of drugs. And beyond all of that, you know who won the war on drugs? Drugs. And you see, that's a lot different from purchasing pornography of any kind. Whenever I go and I purchase a bottle of Elijah Craig, I am just purchasing my ability to get super fucking drunk. What I'm not purchasing is an entire idea. I'm not purchasing the celebration of an idea. I'm just purchasing a drug. However, when I go and I purchase, let's say, I don't know, BDSM porn, I am not just purchasing a plastic disc, if they still sell those, that contains a video file of 2 people having BDSM sex on video. I am also purchasing the celebration of the idea of BDSM sex. So I'm doing a lot more than just purchasing an object. In other words, Bryan, the legalization of the possession, distribution, and use of drugs and alcohol differ from the legalization of child pornography because when legalizing child pornography, what you would actually be doing is normalizing the set of behaviors it celebrates, the very set of behaviors that the whole of society in the majority of the planet woefully condemn.
What's the point of being a predator hunter when even trying to get rid of them seems more predatory predatory. Going after a predator and ruining their life is no less predatory than a predator molesting a child/minor.
Although I would agree that both are predatory, I would not agree that a person going after a predator is equally as predatory as a predator going after a child, because in order to believe that, you would have to believe that both the predator and the child are equally vulnerable, equally innocent, and equally victims somehow, which doesn't make any sense to literally anybody that has two brain cells to rub together.
Child porn, most of it, excluding the most dangerous kind of it, is not the real reason why they want to rape children. It's despite of it, because child porn is still mostly illegal. That's the problem. And if we keep doing this by banning child porn permanently, we'll make it more and more dangerous, and more children are gonna die as a result, after being raped or compromised and not murdered after being raped by a molester or a pedophile/predator.
The legal status on child porn does not actually stop pedophiles from acquiring child porn. In fact, many of the fucking child predators that get arrested are often caught with thousands and thousands and thousands of fucking terabytes of child porn. Now, I'm pretty confident in saying that the real reason that child predators have sex with children is primarily due to the fact that they're sexually attracted to children. I don't know. I think it's a pretty safe assumption. I'm pretty confident in saying that that's the case. And even if we acknowledged your abstract correlation between law and child rape, wouldn't it make more sense that the law against child rape would do more to cause people to rape children than the law on whether or not the porn is legal?
Apparently, people in general don't even bother to care enough to distinguish the difference between someone just being a pedophile without having inappropriately laid a hand on a kid in his life or her life, and being a child predator. The difference simply being the child predator actively wants to rape or hurt children or minors to get what they want, to manufacture consent when children cannot consent. The generic, non-offending pedophile just has a sick and twisted fetish or a sexual attraction to prepubescent children, but doesn't want to hurt or offend children.
I don't know where you got these definitions from, Bryan. A pedophile is just somebody that's sexually attracted to prepubescent children. That's all a pedophile is. I don't know where the fuck you added all that other shit from. All fucking pedophiles are attracted to children, but not all pedophiles have sex with children. However, all child predators are pedophiles. And honestly, if you're sitting there fapping to videos of fucking children being fucked in the ass, you're actually contributing to the same fucking problem.
The problem wasn't that these human traffickers were creating the child porn. It's not even considered porn because porn is fiction. They were recording themselves, raping minors, taking pictures of them naked whilst about to fuck them, and these minors and or children having this happen to them because by your own logic, if you were to call this quote-unquote child porn, it would have to be real in the sense where in your weird, twisted, demented alternative to reality, they can consent when they can't, and that they actually orgasm to this when they're not. They're forced to this against their will. They have to react this way because they're being forced. That's not pornographic. That's actually counter to it. Because of course, orgasms are faked without force. Forced orgasms are completely different from fake orgasms. Just separate the two. Child rape is not the same as child porn, because unlike porn, the rape is real. There is no orgasm. There's only hurt. There's only violence. There's only endless pain to endless trauma.
This take is insane, Bryan. It has nothing to do with orgasms, fake or forced or whatever the fuck. It has nothing to do with whether or not the sexual act is real or scripted. It doesn't matter. Porn is merely the depiction of sexual activity. So even if it's softcore porn where it shows absolutely no fucking penetration of any kind, it doesn't matter. It's still porn. Even if you wrote it down in a book where there's no pictures or images of any kind and you're just describing it, it's still porn. Porn is an umbrella term that encompasses a large array of mediums that all depict one thing: sexual acts. Whether it depicts them fictitiously or realistically doesn't matter. That is a distinction that nobody is drawing but you.
So the truth is, these pedo rings and child sex traffickers exist because they themselves wanted the government and parents to believe that the porn is real to justify their beyond sick and twisted actions towards these children. They wanted the government to ban child porn permanently so that people couldn't bother to tell the difference. So when they did all of this, they knew the government will let them get away with worse and charge/prosecute anyone for anything less than what they've done to children.
I'm going to be real with you. I've listened to this clip a plethora of times. I don't understand anything you just fucking said.
If porn's allowed to be fiction and it harms no one, not even children, then it shouldn't be illegal. It's a pretty controversial take. I'm not pro-CP. Of course not. I'm anti-CP, but I'm also against banning it.
I don't understand. You're against CP, but are in favor of it being legal. And you're saying if it doesn't hurt anybody, that it should be legal, even though it continues to contribute to a set of behaviors nobody is in favor of, that the people that are in favor of it will continue to use to further normalize the very behavior everybody's against in order to further do the very thing that you yourself claim you're against, whilst also saying shouldn't be banned. What?
Here is why arguing that we should kill all pedos is harmful and futile. Arguing that the last resort to an issue is the way to cure and solve all of it is the most pedantically retarded thing I have ever heard in my life on this issue. The problem is with the parents. It's with the government. And it's with having made child porn illegal. Cut, print, and end the fuck of. It's harmful advice because murder is worse than child rape.
You know what, Bryan? No. Actually, murder is not worse than child rape, and I'm not going to make the normal arguments that people make that, like, it's better to be dead than live with the trauma. A lot of people make that argument, and I'm not saying that's right or wrong. What I am going to do, though, instead, is I'm going to appeal to this argument. You can find numerous examples throughout the animal kingdom of murder. I don't mean animals killing other animals and then eating those animals. I mean animals killing animals and then leaving those animals to rot. That is actually a pretty common behavior for multiple different species of animals throughout the animal kingdom, including but not limited to humanity. What you're going to find very few examples of is one animal within a tribe or whatever having sex with the baby version of that animal. That is actually incredibly fucking rare. In fact, it's so rare, one might say it's even unnatural. And as you alluded to earlier on in the video, it's a mental disease to want to fuck a kid. So much so, it should require therapy. And the fact that you are using that argument to somehow imply that murdering a predator is worse than a fucking predator raping a kid is just insane to me. That's just nuts.
And I just came up with an analogy. Child rape is to murder as child porn is to self-defense.
Your analogy is fucking stupid. Next!
Now, before I go off on my rant segment and finally end this fucking video, I will highlight a key difference that everyone forgets. It's not at all hard or even remotely difficult or even impossible to prevent your kids from running to these predators for sexual dependence, all because you refused to teach your kids sex ed when they were 5 to 9 years old.
Now, I cut other examples of this from the video because they were a bit more incoherent than what he just said. But yeah, he is actually implying that 5 to 9-year-olds intentionally seek out predators for sexual dependence. They're not groomed or manipulated or anything. They seek it out. Now, I want to make it clear, jailbait exists. It's a real problem. But that does not absolve the people that are fucking the jailbait. I don't feel like I should have had to say that. I feel like that's obvious. Also, jailbait isn't typically within the age range of 5 to 9 years old either. Also, something I shouldn't have had to say. This video is terrible. You should delete the fucking video.
And I will literally block anybody that tries to call me a pedophile, tries to call me pro-pedo, tries to call for any unjust or undue murder or harm towards me for hurting your fucking precious feelings. If pancake batter matters to you the most, pick a wall and stick to it. I don't fucking care anymore. Pick a wall and fucking stick to it. I'm almost 25 years old and I know for a fact that I'm right. I know for a fact that I'm right.
delete the video. Anyways, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Like, subscribe, and all that other gay fucking shit. And if you really feel so inclined, maybe join my Subscribe Star. Link below, of course. I'm gonna go make pancakes and pretend like none of this ever happened. And then I'm gonna get super fucking drunk, forget the pancakes are even in the frying pan, and hopefully burn the house to the ground and fucking die.